It's been a while since I've posted, but I learned a lot of things this year, and I'd rather share them than keep them to myself. First thing that I learned is addiction stems from negative emotions. The addiction or behavior or drug, whatever you're consuming, sure, it may be bad, but it's not actually the problem that you're facing. The problem that you're facing is you use this drug, you use this escape mechanism, this coping mechanism, to get away from your life, to distract yourself, to basically find some peace because it's fucking hard living in your skin. Okay? The reason we go to these negative vices is because shit is fucking hard. And we don't feel comfortable being able to express ourselves for whatever reason. Maybe you grew up in a household where like the social mimicking was arguments or screaming and never actually communicating anything useful. Or maybe each time you expressed things to your parents, they just shot you down. So you learned that you just kind of bottle stuff inside. These inputs are what lead us to these negative vices. If you are surrounded by a fucking narcissist who's constantly draining you of your soul, and the only way that you can live and survive without feeling like shit all the time is to, let's say, smoke weed or play video games for 12 hours a day, the problem isn't the video games. It's actually the solution. The problem is the person who is making you feel that way. And this is such a fucking vicious cycle because you could get caught in the loop thinking that you're the problem, when in reality, I don't want to say you're a victim, but you're doing your best given your circumstances, right? Realistically, most people in your shoes wouldn't be able to function, probably wouldn't be here today. I was going to say this later, but I guess this brings me to my next point. Compassion. And if you hear that and you're like me, that means absolutely fucking nothing to you. You don't really relate that to anything. You don't understand that. You don't feel it, let's say. You don't accept it. Kind of like acceptance. When somebody says accept something, it kind of bounces off and it's pretty worthless information. But if you really understand, if you've accepted it yourself, it's a whole different feeling, it's a whole different understanding in your brain. Compassion. The reality is that most people who would have grown up in your shoes would not be here today. That's just the truth. Your life was not easy. And it's okay. You don't have to be perfect in every single sense. The reason you probably have that idea is because something external is constantly reinforcing that belief within you. I guess this brings me to my next point. We as humans, we all have intrinsic value. Regardless of whether you make a shit ton of money, regardless of whether you have a ton of friends, regardless of whether you're the most fit person in the world, humans have a certain level of intrinsic value. And I've noticed, I feel like we're kind of losing our ability to just appreciate people for being themselves. Maybe this is me projecting my own view of the world, but I've kind of noticed that expectations have gotten really ridiculous. And people aren't living good lives realistically, because like nobody's connected. Everyone has imposter syndrome because they're comparing themselves to some unbelievable fraction of the world in an unbelievable fraction of moments. And then because we're so disconnected, we're constantly within our own ego, we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to make our lives better by doing things with other people, by exploring things. We just stay in the same shell. With that being said, you can see how this is a pretty weird situation to try and be compassionate to yourself, because you're constantly putting yourself down by comparing yourself to other people and being told that you're not good enough and being fed certain types of insecurities, to the point that it can make you anhedonic, honestly, nowadays. And I've struggled with this a lot. I think I've started to identify this within myself a lot in the last year. One of my biggest goals was to learn how to invest, and I basically dug myself out of a hole. And I don't feel, even though that is an insane accomplishment, I don't really feel any level of serotonin, I guess, immediately. Maybe long term. I know I'm like oh, okay, a little bit of arrogance. I know I'm the shit because of this, but I still don't view myself differently. My identity hasn't necessarily changed, which is really weird. I feel like a lot of being able to change your identity comes from social, I guess, social validation and social connection as well. Having that external source telling you that, like, you're pretty good, I guess. I guess let's get into this, now that this is kind of a good segue. Shame, I learned, is really, really good for taking action initially. Things like anger, things like shame, things like guilt are very good at basically lighting a fire under your ass so you start taking action immediately. However, you can get caught up in a cycle of shame where, whether it be yourself, whether it be external, whether it be both, but if it's internal, it's probably stemming from an external source initially, I would say. You can get caught in this cycle where you may make progress initially, but you get frustrated and you get down on yourself and you contemplate about the fact that, like, you're never going to be able to do this because it's so difficult and it's going to take so much time, because you're thinking in the short term and your ego can't fucking think long term. That can be used as a weapon against you. And if you're in an environment where, let's say, you're literally trying to quit your negative vice, and you're in an environment where you go downstairs and you go around some toxic person, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your family member, and they're constantly pointing out that, like, something stupid, like, oh, you never come hug me when you're not smoking weed, you must be high. Just little jabs, like really fucked up shit, and you may not have smoked for an entire week. What do you think the first instinct of somebody who experiences that is? It brings them back to that same place that addiction stems from. You're constantly being put down for everything. No matter what you do, you're not good enough. And this creates a sense of anhedonia. This can also create really unhealthy habits. Thankfully, I've been able to channel one of those very positively, which is fitness. But I could totally see how that can get taken out of context. People doing drugs. People getting further into addictive behaviors like gambling and alcohol. And negative toxic relationships. Oh man, I love the yapping. I guess I'll leave you with this. The reality is, if you do or you don't live up to these people's expectations, that whether you want to call them insecurities that they're feeding you, these bullshit expectations that realistically nobody can fulfill because they're not fucking real. Those people would just end up finding anything else to pick on anyways. So if currently your parent is pissed at you because you're not doing X, Y, and Z in your life, maybe you're dating interracially and they don't approve, just some really fucked up racist shit. Just stuff that makes absolutely no sense. If you're not living up to these expectations, man, they would just find something else anyways. These people aren't healthy to be around. And it's really fucking hard because sometimes we grow up in a place where that's all we know. only people we've ever had a deep, close connection with are our negative, toxic family members. But in a way, we're handicapping ourselves when we stick around. And I don't blame you. It takes so much fucking time, man. I stopped making videos for a while because, like, the amount of time it takes to learn these things and go through these experiences and have specific wisdom and knowledge to pass on, it's not fucking easy. And I just turned 27. I really fucking hope I could I hope I don't end up like some people that I know. Like, I hope I can break the cycle. I hope I can break the cycle even sooner. And I'm not trying to jab people that I know in this. It's just I feel really bad because I know that experience. It's not easy to build yourself from absolutely nothing, especially when you're already broken. Anyways, I think the world needs to hear this more. I love you. You're an amazing individual, especially if you made it this far. Holy. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you got something from this video. I love you. Bye.